Extraordinary, extraordinary, extraordinary.
Good afternoon to everyone. I request to all of you kindly switch on your videos. We have to take screenshot of your presence. Please request to all of you. Please. Thank you for your kind cooperation. Now I would like to Dr. Nisi Sheth to start the program.
A very good afternoon and warm greeting to our esteemed guests, faculty members, and dear students. I, Dr. Nishi Seth, on the behalf of SS Khanna family, welcome you all in today's orientation session on National Innovation and Startup Policy Guiding Framework for Higher Education Institutes, organized by Institution Innovation Council of SS Khanna Girls Degree College. Now, I would request to our principal and president of Institution's Innovation Council to accord a formal welcome to our esteemed guest and all the participants. Over to you, ma'am.
Very good afternoon to one and all present here. We have joined this orientation session on the National Innovation and Startup Policy Guiding Framework for Higher Educational Institutions. This National Innovation Startup Policy 2019 was launched by the former Minister of Education, Shri Ramesh Pokhriyal, on 11 September 2019, New Delhi. Today's orientation session is to know the why and how of the policy. The fundamental reason for this orientation session, that is NISP, the National Innovation Startup Policy, is to ensure and create an enabling environment within the campus of our college and to promote innovation and entrepreneurship among all of us. This policy constitutes separate provisions not only for students but also for faculty to make sure that they pursue their goods, wonderful ideas as startup and then ultimately contribute to the nation's wealth at large. To create awareness and understanding about the importance of this National Innovation and Startup Policy, we have an expert, an eminent speaker, Dr. Pramod Soniji, amongst us. Dr. Soni presently is the Assistant Professor in the Department of Civil Engineering, MNNIT, Allahabad. He's also a Startup Faculty Coordinator and Innovation Ambassador for this National Innovation and Startup Policy in MNNIT, Allahabad. He has also served as Assistant Professor in MBM Engineering College, Jodhpur, in the year 2018. Completed his PhD from IIT Kanpur. Dr. Soni is a recipient of the Award for Academic Excellence in the year 2012. He received that, which is perhaps the largest founding organization for international students from developing countries. He was awarded Master Sandwich Program Award in the year 2011 for pursuing research in Germany. We are indeed delighted to have you with us, and we are very confident that your views, your experience will go a long way in making this IIC cell in our college work in the right direction, both for the students and for the faculty. I accord you a warm welcome on behalf of my faculty, management, and students, and all the participants who have joined. A very warm welcome to all of you too. Over to Dr. Nishi Seth to carry on this session.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to invite Dr. Pramod Soni, sir, to enlighten us on the topic. Dr. Soni, sir, over to you.
Yeah, ma'am, thank you, ma'am, for such a nice introduction. Ma'am, can you hear me properly? My voice is...
You are audible,
clear?
sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sir.
Okay, I'm having some common cold problem here, so it may be some difficulty.
Sir, you are
clarity.
audible, sir. You are audible.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen from this side. Let me see if it's working. Is it visible, ma'am? The screen.
Yeah. Just a minute, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's visible, right? Okay, 1 second. Okay.
सर ये प्रॉपर विजिबल नहीं है सर, ये आईपैड लिख के आ रहा है सर.
Okay, 1 second. So, okay. Share screen. Okay, now is it working?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So thank you, Dr. Nishi, once again. A very good afternoon to uh, all the participants, the committee members of IIC, faculties, students. As ma'am has already introduced about me, I am Dr. Pramod Soni, working in the Department of Civil Engineering as assistant professor, holding the post of startup coordinator in IIC and recently the innovation ambassador for the NISP. So today's session is going to be on National Innovation and Startup Policy, that is NISP in short. Okay, so I'll share my experience, the things that I've learned from the courses that we have taken up, uh, the way we have formulated our policy, or our draft has been formulated. So based on my experience on that, I'll be sharing the experience, and some new knowledge about startup will be shared. So before start with the policy, I'll briefly start with the some terminologies that will be required. So startup and entrepreneurship. Okay, when we say startup, the first thing comes in our mind, what is startup? So as per definition, if you go, startup is is a company or a project that is undertaken by an entrepreneur to seek, develop, and validate a scalable business model. It's as simple as that. But if you see in the simple words, it's a young company that is founded by one or more entrepreneurs. That has to be a unique product, a unique service, and they bring it to the market. So that is the startup. Right? Entrepreneur is a person who is bringing the company, who is starting the company, that we call as the entrepreneur. Now, scalable business model. What is a scalable business model? It's a if you have business, and if the business goes increasing, if your sales increase, and if you're able to improve your profit margins, that you call as the scalable business model. Okay. So entrepreneurship, on the other hand, are all new businesses. Startup is something which is a new idea, but entrepreneurship is not necessarily a new idea or new product. So that is a basic difference between entrepreneurship and the startup. So something new is there, then it's a startup. We'll talk about the innovation also in the upcoming slides. But as of now, if you have a new idea, that is a startup. That's fine. Now the problem with the startups is they have very high uncertainty. Many startups they fail. Many startups fail. They have high rate of failure. But those startups that are successful, when even a minority of the startups they are successful, but they are really successful. I'll give you some examples here, and you will be shocked when they are startups. And one of the definition of the success is based on the unicorn companies. So you might have heard the term. This is a unicorn company. These many companies have been included in the unicorn list of companies in India. Basically, it's simply defined as those companies that are valued at over 1 billion US dollars. So those all companies are called the unicorn companies, right? I'll start with some interesting startup statistics so that will give you more information on startups. As of now, United States, USA, is the leading country by the number of startups. If you can count the number of startups, US is the leading company. How many? This is the wrong number. I think this has to be 65. Sorry, 65,703. That is the number as of now. Leading country. India is lying on the second number in terms of the number of startups. Nearly 8,000 is the number of startups for India. 7.1% of the startups in the world, they are operating in the fintech, that is the financial technology. So fintech is relatively new term. These are two terms, financial and technology. So if you add money products, including money investment, money managing, all these products which are related to money with the technology, that becomes your fintech companies or fintech industry. Some examples I can give you about the fintech industries could be like Paytm, Cred, Grow, Finity. These all are the companies which are managing your money or growing your money using shares, Kite, Zerodha. So all these are the fintech companies. And 7.1% of the startups are right now operating in the fintech part. However, the highest valued private startup in the world as of now is the White Dance from China, valuing at $140 billion. Like 1 billion was for the unicorn companies and 140 is going way too high. What is ByteDance? ByteDance, you might not know about the ByteDance, but you have heard about the TikTok, right? So ByteDance is basically the developer of the TikTok. Apart from TikTok, they have the Chinese counterpart, that is Douyin, they call it. Douyin is another Chinese counterpart of the TikTok, where they make the social networking video sharing apps. Presently, they are having daily active users, nearly 800 million daily active users. So you can imagine what kind of growth they are having. The number one startup. That's a small fact here, that 69% of the startup companies, they started as home businesses. Home business means where the entrepreneur started from their own office. From the office itself, they started. It's a large number. 40%, only 40% are able to become profitable. We'll see what the failures are, but as of now, you just see the number. 40% of them are able to become profitable. And when we say the challenge, what are the challenges that you're facing? I'm not talking about the failure here. Failure we'll discuss in a separate way. But if you see the challenge, the greatest challenge that you're facing is the competition. Nowadays, everyone is coming with startup. Population is very high. All the people are coming same business. So competition, 19% of the entrepreneurs or the startup people, they believe that 19% believe that the competition is the greatest challenge. 58% of the startups have nearly less than $25,000 at the disposal in the startup phase. So it's a way too less money. And about the technologies, the AI is currently the most promising innovation. If you compare the technologies, AI comes at the promising innovation technology. I'll not say it's the topmost startup company, but it's a promising because it has high growth possibilities here, because we are just coming into the AI era. Now here are some more statistics that I'll show you. This I already shown, that USA is having USA is having nearly 65,000 startups. Second number India 8,301, and then we have the UK at 5,377. Now there are two things to notice here, right? India is on second number. That's a good thing. So that we have potential, and that is the reason we are coming up with the NIS. But the bad thing is we are at least 8 times lesser than the number one, that is USA. So we have to focus on that also. Then there are some small countries. So all of these are less. Now this is the graphical distribution of unicorn companies. Sorry. So definition of the unicorn companies I had already discussed. This chart, just for the view you see, actually, it's an old chart. Actually, it's from 2016 year. So it's showing that India is currently having 3 unicorn companies. Mostly USA is having 35, and then we have Alaska, Brazil, some. So it's an old chart, but it just gives you the graphical representation that which are the companies which are coming into the unicorn phase. Right. I have listed some more companies. Right. The first Indian startup company which came into the unicorn list was the InMobi. That is the advertising agency for the mobile ads. So they were used to provide ads for the mobiles. It started in 2011. That was the first company. And Flipkart, you all know, in 2012 it became the unicorn company in 2012. Presently, the valuation of the Flipkart is 37.6 billion. Then we have the Snapdeal that came into the list in 2014. It came strongly, but then now it's all that much famous. It has valuation at nearly 2.4 billion only. Here you can see some list, some companies you might be knowing from apps, etc. They are unicorn companies. So some of them like Grow for managing the mutual funds. Right. We have the Urban company providing the home-based services. They are very famous. They are all Indian companies. They're coming to unicorn list. Right. Then we have the ShareChat also is there. Cred, managing your credit card payments. You can easily manage your credit card payments. So these are all the ideas were there. And the major thing was these were the ideas that created the unicorn companies. I mean, brilliant ideas were there. So that created all these unicorn companies. Now, some statistics about how these startups fail. That is also important. And statistics about how many startups fail. We'll talk about how they fail later on. But as of now, you can see 9 out of 10 startups don't make it. So 90% of the startups, we really see any growth. I mean, only 10% of them become successful as of this scenario. Now, what happens? 20% of them fail after a year. After a year, 20% just go. 30% within 2 years. 50% within 5 years. And 70% they fail within 10 years. And then after that, remaining 20% they also fail. So the failure percentage is large. Now, what are the reasons? I'll just take some major reasons are here. Lack of ability to offer a product for target market. It's the most important, I'll say, because when you're going for a market and you don't know what your consumer or the customers need, it's very difficult to sustain. You are, you're trying to make a startup with something which we don't need. Then why will you buy it? Some innovation is there or invention is there, whatever it is. If the people are not interested in buying that, if they're not going to use it, who will buy it? So target market, you're not able to find out. Not able to generate interest in their products or services. You have good product, you have good services, but you're not able to generate interest. Probably because of poor marketing. That's another.
Sir, you are not audible, sir.
Okay, now is it working?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good, thank you. So another reason for failure is the poor team organization. So you make a team which they are not working in the coherent fashion or effectively, then your startup may not get success. So these are some of the reasons. So I've listed it in the form of the table here. If a survey was taken up by for different startup failures, and these were the answers that they gave, that 42% of them, they said that the market need is one of the topmost reason for the failures. 42%. Then other reasons, second reason is the finance. They ran out of the cash. 29% they believe they ran out of cash. Not the right team. Not able to get the right team. Competition again is the reason for the failure, and again is the major challenge, the topmost challenge, and the competition is the reason of the failure also. Pricing and cost issue. So that is not about the financing, but it is about the setting up the right price for the product that you're selling. You're producing something which is way too costly for the target audience, target customer, sorry. They'll not buy it. Your target customers need proper pricing. Poor product quality is there, poor business model, poor marketing. These are some of the things. Ignoring customers, that is more related to customer care. Lose focus and lose focus. Both of these are the major reasons. So either you don't have focus, that's fine, and you had focus but you definitely lose focus, then also it's going to fail. So some of these are the important reasons. The challenges I already discussed. So competition is the number one challenge in terms of the challenge. Then we have the cash flow, taxes, economies. They all affect the startup when you start trying to create the startup. Okay, now top 5 fastest growing startup industries are healthcare on top. Then we have the transportation, then the financial services on the third number, and then artificial intelligence is also one of the promising technology, right? Growing is healthcare, of course, but the promising technology is artificial intelligence, right? Okay, so innovation. Now we start with the innovation. We talked about startup and entrepreneurship. Now let's talk about the term innovation. Innovation, what is innovation? Innovation is the practical implementation of ideas that result in the introduction of new goods or services or improvement in offering goods and services. Right. There is a slight difference between invention and innovation. Right. There's a slight difference. We'll talk here. So as per ISO-TC is a technical committee for the International Organization for Standardization, ISO-TC 279. They define that innovation as a new and change entity realizing or redistributing value. Okay. Many people gave many different definitions for the innovation, but the major thing is newness, improvement, spread of ideas and technologies. And one thing they're missing here is the market. So market is also important here, right? So innovation is something that you're creating some new entity, new idea, new thing. It doesn't have to be invention. Innovation doesn't need invention. Not all inventions lead to innovation, right? Like you see this line here. Innovation is related to, but not the same as invention. Invention is more apt to involve the practical implementation of an invention. So innovation is apt to involve the practical application of invention. You make an invention, you file a patent for it, you get the patent, you have that technology. Now that is staying there. If you're not going to use that for marketing, what's the use of that invention? No use. So you cannot call it innovation. There are thousands of patents which are lying there on your table. Let's say inventions are lying on your table, but they are not useful for the market. You cannot call it innovation until you have some market value for that product. So innovation requires a new innovation. Not all innovation require a new innovation. So as I said, invention may be needed for innovation, but a simple idea, which is not even an invention, you can bring an idea and go for the innovation. So that's the slight margin. People use synonymally, but should not be used synonymically. There are different terms, invention and innovation. Right. Now, what is the need for innovation and entrepreneurship? So here we try to find the need. Again, one more definition as given by Professor Frederick. Professor Frederick is a professor of in the Vlerick Business School, Belgium, in the entrepreneurship course. So he teaches an entrepreneurship course. He defines that innovation is the introduction of novelty in a given market industry, new product, services, methods, anything it can be, right? Sources of supply or organization. At the same time, now focus on this point here. At the same time, there is a strong emphasis on successful commercialization, as I was focusing. That is a more important part. You have new idea, new method, anything, but if you don't have successful commercialization, there is no point there. Innovation is more than an idea and invention. It's the result of taking it to the market. Again, the market term here we should not lose. Market is very, very important, right? Now, why we need innovation? Why innovation is required in India? India is aspiring to become a $5 trillion economy by 2024. We are aspiring. As of now, as of 2021, we have nearly 3 trillion, I think $3 trillion economy as of now. For that, we need to evolve our systems and mechanisms. One of the big thing is we had seen the ranking. India is ranked at second, or we are having 8,000 startups. But the startups which are coming, only I think 3 to 4% of the HEI. So HEI will be calling as higher educational institutions. Only 3 to 4% are participating in these startups, or startups are only from 3 to 4% of these institutes. What if this number increased to 20%, 30%? We will definitely be surpassing many USA. So that is the reason we need to evolve our systems and mechanisms. Convert present demographic dividend into high quality technical human resource. So demographic dividend is you can call it like it's you can call it the ratio of population, which is like working age population and non-working age population. So 15 to 64 is the working age population, and less than 14 and more than 65 we call as the non-working population. So if you convert this present demographic dividend, that is the working age population, into high quality technical human resource, you can convert them. And these are the people which are in the higher educational institutes. They start from there only. We need cutting edge research and deep tech entrepreneurship. So that is the reason. Okay, this slide I think should have been earlier, but I'll discuss it here. This is again focusing on the ranking of India. Misplaced. So this, on the x-axis we have the sorry, On the x-axis, we have the startup activity index. That is a function of total startups per capita, how many startups are there per capita, acquisitions, unicorn analysis, how many companies are unicorn companies, investors, ecosystem, etc., etc. So we have a startup activity index on the x-axis, and on the y-axis we have the government focus, how the government is tackling the things like government policies, initiatives, country-specific indices, ease of doing business. So if you increase both of these, we will be growing in this direction, right? Like US is doing. So we'll become aspirant, from aspirant will become emergent, and emergent to mavericks. So as of now, we are in the emergent location here. Number of startups may be high, but we are behind China, USA, Israel. I'll say we are behind in terms of this index. Right? They are far ahead. Now this one here is giving you the Indian innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem. Some statistics again you can see. Age distribution. All the startups that we're having, 20% of them were started by less than 25 years of age. 26 to 45 are nearly 75% of the startups are between 26 to 45 years of the age. So these are the persons who are going into the startups. The data is taken from, again, NASCAM 2016 only, so it's an old data, maybe changed a little bit. Again, important point here. So this is an important point which says that we should focus on the HEIs. HEIs, these are the people which are you can find in the HEIs, the faculties, the students, they are all the same age range. Here you see the education qualifications for all the startup holders. It's at least engineering graduates, 50%, or MBA, 25%. So again, they are from the HEIs. Student startups, they are growing. Just have the numbers for these 2 years. So from 350, it became 450 plus in the year 2017. Its growth is 30% yearly growth. Again, that's an important number because students are doing startup, they are growing. We should push them. So that's what the slide means. Female contribution, yes, that's also increasing. Good thing. So from 9 to 10, 10 to 11, every year we are having 1% increase in female participation in these startups. Globally, yes, we are slightly lagging as compared to 19%. We are just, let's say, maybe around 12% right now. We are lagging, but still we are growing. That is important. Right? So growth is more important. Yeah, this slide is an important slide. I'll just discuss this again. This should have been earlier, but anyways, we can discuss it here also. On the left side, we have is the, let me zoom in a bit. So we have the, yeah, on the x-axis we have the startup age. That is inception, seed stage, early stage, growth stage, and expansion stage. There are basically different persons divide the startup stage in different forms, but yeah. So let's say inception. What is inception? Is the first stage. You are sitting at some place, institute or home, and you come up with an idea. Can we do this? Can we think of some product like this, or can we think of some service like this? What is that? That's inception. You just thought of an idea that may be a good idea. You are trying to refine it, but you just have is the idea. So your startup is up to this point. Your startup is in the inception stage, just the ideation stage. Now, 45 to 50% of the startups die at the idea stage. You have an idea, nothing. You don't have funding, it dies. Then comes the seed stage. Seed stage is the point where you need some money. Money comes from where? You get this money from a local area, maybe let's say your friends, your family, your acquaintance, or I mean, small amount of money comes, right? So amount of money is also very less, right? You can see. So from $200 to $250,000 only. So that amount you give. Then you have the early stage. Okay. In the early stage, if you cross the seed stage and you come to the early stage, at the early stage you approach the investors, the real investors, which you can get the money from. So between these two, so here we don't have any money from the real investors, and here we have the money from the real investors, right? You don't have product here, or your product may be in the beta version or not reach the market yet at this stage, right? But at that stage also 30 to 35% of the startups die only because of the lack of the investment, right? The support is not there. Then we have the growth stage, that is just before the IPO launching stage, right? So here you try to give the shares to the investors, and your product is reach the market, trying to have some revenue generation. So at that point also 15% of the startups die. And once you reach this stage, that is a safe zone of the startup, then you have the growth, and in that growth also 10% of them may die. So that is the number. And here on this part of the slide, if you see some issues that we are focusing on why the startups die. So one of them is some examples I also put it here, so I'll put some of them. Scalability related issue. Okay, failure to scale business. This company GoZumo. GoZumo, if you have heard, this company was a peer-to-peer marketing for the pre-owned car, just like we have the Kika, OLX, and carbazaar.com, etc. So this was also for the same purpose. The problem with that company was that they put the unrealistic cost. So let's say you're trying to buy a car from this company, you go there, you check, okay, this is the model, this is the year, this is the owner number, and you say price is very high. So they fail at the stage. I mean, people won't buy if you put a very high cost, or sometimes they put very low cost. So they're not able to afford that. So major issue was not the money here. GoZumo didn't have the issue with the money. They had the issue with the scalability. They didn't think properly. The peer-to-peer marketing failed, and there was competition was also there. So that was the reason it could not succeed. Then we have funding related issues. So PaperTap is another company. You have nowadays you have Grofers. Swiggy is also doing some grocery business. Big Basket, right? So these are the new startups. PaperTap was also an older startup, probably I think 4 or 5 years back started, I think. Now, what was the reason here? They gave so much of the discounts to products. There was so much of the discounts that they could not sustain. The financial crux came. It's a simple thing. You have to sell grocery products. You have to create the market for the grocery products. But what they did was they simply could not even sustain. So you have to be sustainable also. You sell some products with a cheaper price, and at the same time you have to increase the cost of some products. Then and then only you'll be able to succeed. If you keep everything as a cheap cost, you're just going into loss. So that was the reason for the PaperTap failure. Then we have this one, askme.com. You might have heard of this company also. The problem with this company was not the finance or not the scalability. The problem was the thinking. They wanted to capture each and every market. They said, okay, we need grocery, we need books, we need furniture, we are going for the transportation. Every sector they were trying to acquire, and there was no proper team that can handle that much of the large business. So because of that, failed. So askmebazaar.com failed. Then one external factor could be there. The Muzibu was one company which was like music sharing kind of company, and this was failed mainly because of the Copyright Issue Act. So they were sharing the music, and a lot of copyrights came on the company. So because of that, it failed. So this could be the mortality of the startup. Now with that, now we come up with the startup policy. Now we'll try to discuss. I think how much time I have left? Like half an hour. I will be having now. Dr. Nishi. I have a lot of slides here. So we have, I mean, do we have any time constraint here? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
So how much time shall we be having?
Sir, we have, yeah, sir.
3:30. Okay, so I'll
Yes,
try
sir.
to wrap up with that. Okay, so NISP. Ma'am has already explained about what NISP is, but I'll just give a brief history before that. In 2016, the AICTE, they launched a startup policy document for AICTE approved institutions. That was only for the AICTE approved institutions. They were like 10,989 at the time. That was focused on guiding the institutions in implementing the startup action plan of Indian government. At the time, they launched some mobile portals. The tax exemptions were given to up to 3 years for the startups. Atal Innovation Mission and some incubation center was also developed. See, incubation centers were developed at that time. So that policy was there from 2016. But then there was a need felt that It has to be proper. It has to be properly documented with proper rules and regulations kinds of thing. So elaborate and comprehensive policy was required. So that required these NISP. How it formed? A 15-membered committee was constituted by MHRD. This committee consisted of various directors of IIT Kanpur, IIT Madras, Hyderabad, the directors of IIT Tirchi and IIT Jaipur. So they all came up, and because they are the pioneers in the innovation and startup. You see their incubation centers. You'll be amazed how well they are managing the startups. They're growing a lot. So based on their experience, they formulated this policy. So this policy, the major reason for this policy was they covered IP ownership rights, intellectual property ownership rights, revenue sharing mechanisms, how the revenue generated will be shared between institution, between faculty, between students. These all will be discussed. Norms for technology transfer, how the technology transfer will take place, what percentage of share, which part will be given, commercialization, equity sharing. So these all issues were discussed. We'll discuss each and every point in brief. Right. This is again the NISP is a guiding framework. Again, important point to consider here is it's a guiding framework. It's not a rule. We can't say it's a rule. It's a guiding framework. It says you should do that. It never says you must do that. There's nothing like must. Everything is should. You should adopt this policy. You take up the part of the policy which is relevant to your institute, and then frame your own policy, and that will be implemented. So this policy is just to guide you to create your own policy. It's a guiding framework to envision an education system oriented towards startup and entrepreneurship opportunities. Right. Right. So it's the same thing. It gives it enables the institutes to actively engage students, faculty, and staff in innovation and entrepreneurship related activities. As of now, it's very weak. Students, faculties, they are not focusing on the startup or the innovation. The need is there so that students or the faculty, they engage in these activities, innovation and entrepreneurship. They make it as a prime objective also, similar to the academic, similar to the research, similar to administrative activities they're doing. So that has to be developed. Other point is the bringing uniformity. Right. So different institutes have different policies. Some institutes may have different sharing revenue policy. Different institutes have different policies for the freedom incentives. Different incentives are there. So they put a simple document. Okay, this is the guideline. So most of them will take up something from that document. So it will be kind of uniform structure for all the institutions. Right. So these are the reasons for the startup policy. So this is a block diagram I can call for the policy. On the top, we have the objective: increase employment rate through self-employment. That is the top reason. Increase employment. So that is a major vision, you can call it. National goal. National goal is to increase employment rate through self-employment. For that, we have a long-term goal, that is vibrant and dynamic ecosystem in the HEIs. So we have to develop a ecosystem in the HEI. So now there are 4 different pathways or different blocks, I'll say, and they go in 4 different ways, right? So first one is, you can see the top block, the blue block, is the developing a critical mass of motivated students. So you have to motivate a certain part of the students. How you can motivate? You have to aware and motivate students. You have to deliver education on innovation and entrepreneurship. This can be done by organizing workshops, lectures, seminars, talks, conduct online classroom education, right? Experiential learning from the experience of the local entrepreneurs or the recent entrepreneurs. That is the first part. So this is the motivation part. Second block is about access to resources and facilities at the institute. So second part focuses on the facilities that you have right now. You have infrastructure facilities. So you have to develop the infrastructure facilities. Enterprise support should be there. The resources that you have should be accessible to students and faculties. So this part focuses on that part. What you do? You should have startup cell. You should have IIC, innovation. You support ideas. So with these parts, you are actually going to this block. Then we have in-house competency development. Whatever you have in your institute, you develop its competency. That can be done by in-house trained professionals are there. Let's say one of your faculty members is having training in certain aspect of the innovation startup, to take and train other ones, or you call the external experts. Actively mentoring sessions should be provided. Knowledge generation can be done, right? So FDPs, incentives should be given for the mentors. So this part is creating that way. Okay. Then we have the intra and inter-institutional linkage with ecosystem. So that is again inter-department linkage and inter-institutional linkages. So that is more like conference kind of thing. You create events in which different departments, they come up together to do research, or different institutes, they come up together and they do the things. And for that we need the policy design, resource allocation, financial budget. So that is the input. With these inputs only we are able to go to the top goal. These are the thrust areas. I'll briefly say the NISP policy. If you see, that's 10 points there, but if you sum up all those 10 points, they can be divided into 6 blocks. So these 6 blocks are strategy and governance for the innovation entrepreneurship, norms for faculty and student driven innovation and startups, incubation and pre-incubation support, IP ownership rights, pedagogy and learning interventions, and entrepreneurial performance impact assessment. So these are the major 6 blocks, A, B, C, D, E, F, you can call them. And for the each A block, let's say we have 3 more blocks that are separating the innovation pipelines and pathways, creating organizational capacity, collaboration, co-collaboration, and business relationship, etc. This one part here is incentivizing the faculty and student startups, or norms for the faculty startups. So these are the separate blocks, right? So I'll quickly go through some of the important points here because I don't have much time here. So I'll focus on the important points which are really important for the policy generation. Right. First thing is institute should develop the policy. So policy generation is the first step. Okay. Now this has to be taken with the help of the NISP document as well as the other institute policies that you can take. Now a senior faculty member with less hierarchy and autonomy must drive the entrepreneurial agenda. So you should, the institute should take up, give the responsibility to someone who is a senior faculty at the level of dean, director, or some high position, so that he's not hindered by the other processes. And the hierarchy is, is not required here. It has to be less hierarchy here, right? Then we have resource mobilization, very important. The only problem institutes face nowadays is we don't have money. How do we fund the startups? Where do we give the fund from? So NISP says that you can minimum give 1% of your total annual budget to the innovation. You keep that 1% for the innovation. You can raise funds from diverse sources. There are so many, sources available. State funding agencies, AICT, DST, SARB. So from these agencies, you can ask for the funds. Then we have a Section 135 of the Company Act. You can approach the companies which can, give supports under the incubation fund. Sponsorship or donation from the alumni network, you can do that, right? So these are some of the important points in the block A, strategies and governance for promoting entrepreneurship. That is the, on the top level, what institute can do at the top level. They can make the policy, they can give these provisions for the funding. Now innovation pipelines and pathways, right? So in that we have to develop entrepreneurial mindset. They should be taught that innovation is a mechanism to solve the problems of society. Okay. Then we have IIC formation. So this has already been done in most of the institutes now. So IIC formation is a mandate here. Yeah, this one here. A culture needs to be promoted to understand that money is not free and the risk capital. Now, what happens is if you have an innovation fund here and students approach to you that okay, we are going to do this startup, we need money. You give them 1 lakh rupees, and then everything is, they use up this money and then come up that startup is failed. Now that is not going to work. They should understand that money is not free. What you are giving them is not free money. I mean, you are having a trust on them, so they should also not break the trust. They should take this 1 lakh and return 1 lakh and maybe some revenue generated. So that way this will be possible. So this culture needs to be developed. It's not like culture has to be changed actually, right? A ready reckoner of the innovation toolkit. So on the website you can put your facilities that are available in your institute, or any queries for the innovators or the startup persons. They can put up the queries, they can be answered on that toolkit, or you can provide the facility that are available, right? So these are the something that institute can do. Maximum utilization of internal resource and knowledge. Subject matter experts should be called so that they can be more aware of that. Okay, so that is reward mechanisms for all staff and stakeholders. So that we'll discuss that part also in detail in the later slides. Okay, so stakeholder engagement should be given. Some important points are here, like internship, teaching and research exchange programs. So inter-institutional events should be created. Absorbing information and experience from the external ecosystem. You take the information from the external, some startups which are available at the local scale, or you can call your friends who are in the startup activities, right? So these can be done at the institute level. And this is an important slide for the students as well, right? How you incentivize the students for the innovation entrepreneurship, right? You offer them pre-incubation and incubation facility. If you have the incubation facility, some institutes, many institutes don't have. So if you have, then you provide the incubation facility, or pre-incubation can be provided, support, etc. But if you don't have, you can approach some nearby institute for the incubation facilities which are available. Uh, Allow licensing of IPR from institute. So institute should have an IPR cell which will help the licensing the intellectual property rights of any product or any patent or any innovation that they have done. Yeah, this is an important. While setting up a startup and working part-time for the startup. So if a student is doing a startup, they should be allowed to work or study. They should be allowed to work part-time for the startup while they're studying. So that is the part. And for the faculties, it will be the working. Faculty is also doing the startup. They should be allowed to do the part-time work. So numbers, etc. we'll talk about in a while. They should be given credits for working on these business models. So we have credit course systems here. So if there are some courses which have some credits. So apart from that, if they are doing the innovation prototype business models, they should be given due credit for that also. This is again an important point. In place of the mini project, major project, seminar or summer trainings, they may be allowed to opt the startup. So they can say, okay, I'm going to work on this startup for this semester instead of this mini project. They should be allowed. Again, should be allowed. Yeah, separate and clearly distinguish their ongoing research activities. So it is specifically for the graduate students, the PhDs or the masters, that if they are doing some research activity under their masters or the PhD, they should clearly separate that this is the startup part and this is the research part. If they are mixing it, then it's a problem here. So this should not be happen. They should be allowed to use the address in the institute to register the company. So any company, if it's going to be registered, has to have some address. The institute should let them use the address. Yeah, this again is a very important point. They should be allowed to sit for the examination, because students ask questions. If we are going to work on, I mean, we allow them, like for example, if they're going for sports activities or for any other activities, we allow them for sitting in the examination. So the same thing should go for the startups also. But the only problem here is it should not be taken for granted, right? It may so happen that okay, if a student is having less attendance, he'll at the end of the session he'll come and say, okay, I was working on this startup, it failed, so let me sit in the examination. No, that should not be allowed. Students should approach the administration that I am going to work in this semester for this startup. So it may be possible that my attendance may be low. So beforehand he should inform. So a committee or the institute should give the permission, and then only he should be allowed. Semester break, year break, part-time was one thing, and taking a semester or year break is another thing. So students should be allowed to take a semester year break if they are working on the startup. Accommodation should be given apart from the address that we have talked. So accommodation can also be given to the entrepreneurs. Again, this policy does not only talks about the student or the faculty. It also says that okay, if you have the nearby areas, some people are there who want to do the startup, or you use your incubation facilities or laboratory facilities or the IPRSL facilities, you do that. You take some fee, you take some shares, but you do that. So accommodation can be given to those entrepreneurs also. So that is one thing you can do. So yeah, so this is again entrepreneurship training can be provided, mentorship support should be given, right? So many things can be done for the students. Now this is again a very important point here. Institute may take 2 to 9.5% of the equity stake in the startup company. A student has created a startup company. Now again, this part has a condition here that based on the faculty contribution, support provided, institute facilities used, depending on what level of support has been provided by the institute can take from 2 to 9.5% of the equity. That is the maximum is the 9.5%, right? And minimum you can take is 2%. If you want, you don't take anything. I mean, just a guideline here. Startup may be given a cooling period of 3 months. Now, for this point here, a cooling period may be given. Let's say student has a startup and now it's on the growing stage. So you say, okay, we'll help you set up the office, we'll give you the PC, telephone, etc. and the address, etc. And it will help you set up your business. So that is the incubation. So startup may be given a 3 months of the cooling period. So startup, you can say, okay, you come here, you take the place for 3 months, you use our services on the rental basis. We'll take this much of the rental, and if you like it, then we go with these terms, 2 to 9.5%. Otherwise, we'll stop here. So that thing can be provided for the students so that they can take a final decision after the 3 months. This one is again, this one I already told this point, that extend the startup facility to alumni as well as the outsiders. So even if the outsiders wants to take the support, if you have the incubation facility, do help them. Again, this is very, very important. Participation should be considered as the legitimate activity of the faculty. This is the part of faculty, sorry, it came in this one. It should be a legitimate activity of the faculty in addition to what they're doing is teaching, R&D project, industry consultancy, management duties. So nowadays, we have the evaluation, the ACR, etc. is filled. So we take up these points. The how many publications you have done, how many projects you have done, how much consultancy you have done, all these things we take up. But there is no place for the startup. This should be included at the institute level. Although if your institute has the system, that's good. Or on the center level, this has to be changed on the center level. But if you can do some something on your own, then it should be included in the annual performance for the promotion. Okay, so these are some of the things. Again, the same thing goes with the faculty. The faculty should be allowed to take the break. This one is again a very, very important point. Institute can take no more than 20% of the share that staff faculty takes. Institute cannot take more than 20% of the share that staff or faculty is taking from a company. So let's say there is a company which is created by some student and faculty is a mentor, let's say. So institute cannot take more than 20% of those shares. I mean, the condition is he's taking the full salary from the institution, right? If he's not taking the salary, that's another thing. So he's a real regular employee in the institute. But this has again a cap of 9.5%, which we previously discussed. So this part here is for the institute. So institute can take between 2 to 9.5%. Also, it can take not more than 20% of the share that staff is taking. So let's say staff is taking only 1%, the institute share will drop down, right? So that is the thing. Again, a very, very important point. No restriction on shares that staff and faculty can take as long as they do not spend more than 20% of the office time. Also, they are not compromising their existing academic and administrative duties. If they are not hampering that part and they are spending time which is less than 20%, then they can take as much as shares that they can take. But for the institute, this number is still there, 9.5% or maximum of the 20% of the share of the staff. So let's say if staff is taking 100% share, it cannot go 20% for the institute. It will be only 9.5% for the institute. That is again a guideline. You can create your own rule. You can have 7.5% cap for your institute. Right? Again, a very, very important point. Again, these are all very important points. So role of faculty may be owner, founder, co-founder, director, promoter, advisor, mentor, consultant. You can take any role. A faculty can take any of these roles in the startup, but he cannot take role of employee. He cannot become an employee of the company. He cannot become a CEO of the company. He says that I'm CEO, I'm taking this much salary. No, he cannot draw salary from the startup. He cannot accept gifts from the startup. He can be a director, he can be a promoter, but he cannot take salary as such, right? This one you can add to your policy, that conflict of interest. So you can make a section where conditions can be given, or the some examples can be given for the conflict of interest. So these are the cases in which the conflict of interest takes place. For that, committee can be formed with 5-member committee, which will solve the problems of the conflict of interest depending on the situation, right? Okay, so that is about things. This we already discussed. Again, distinguish the research from the institute, what research you're carrying on your own and what is the research from the startup. That should be separated. This is more about the incubation and pre-incubation support. Allow licensing of IPR, 24/7 facility available to institute. This we have already discussed, 2 to 9.5%. Again, this cooling period we discussed. Okay, then we have IP ownership right. So this is more about IP ownership. So licensing fee. Okay, so let's say you have created an invention and you want to license the your invention. Okay, so is this automatically going to close after 1 hour, or shall we have 5 minutes extra. Dr. Nishi, it will
Yes, sir.
close?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It will close automatically, or
No, sir, it will not.
okay, that's fine. So I can take 2-3 minutes more then. Okay, so we have, let's say a student comes up with something, some innovation products, and then he wants to license the product. So there are 3 ways he can do. One thing is which most students may prefer nowadays, because they don't have the time and hassle to go for that. So they just give the upfront fee or one-time technology transfer fee. So just have the technology, you transfer it to some company. That company will be using your technology. You will be given a handsome amount for that, and you keep that and you'll be happy. Now you have no rights on that. So that is the one-time technology transfer fee. You can also have a royalty as a percentage of the sale price. So whatever products you're selling, based on that, you will be given a royalty. And the third thing could be the shares in the company which is licensing the project. So you can have the shares of that product. Now, the shares could be, since you are having, should not be more than 4% of the sale price. Again, there is a limitation of 4%, and it should be 1 to 2% unless it's a pure software product. Right. So these are some numbers for the licensing. Okay, so yeah, IPR institute will have IPR ownership rights only if the technology is developed in their institutes. However, if IPR or product is developed not using any institute facilities outside office hours, if you are working outside office hours, not a part of the curriculum by student, right? Like the seminar or the research project, like that, then this is entirely owned by the inventor who has invented it. So there is no contribution of the institute in that case. So he can decide to do the licensing by third parties or any technology they want. I mean, they have their own freedom if it's being done outside office hours and no institute facilities is being used, right? Again, this can be included in your policy that if there is a dispute in ownership, a minimum 5-member committee can be formed with 2 faculty members having sufficient IPR, and 2 of them institute alumni, industry experts, and 1 legal advisor. They all come up, 5 committee members, and they form a dispute in the ownership. Okay, so that is one thing. Okay, they are not that important. Pedagogy and learning intervention. So it's very simple. So in this part, we are talking about that institute should change the learning methodologies so that the innovation is a part of the curriculum, right? So student clubs and bodies and departments, they must be created, which can organize competitions, boot camps, workshops. Some awards can be given. Like one example could be innovation and entrepreneurship award can be created annually. So it can be given to recognize the outstanding ideas, successful enterprises and contributors. So this kind of award can be given. One way could be startup champions could be created at different departments. So each department can have their own startup champion, which is doing the best in their field, right? Students should be taught to tolerate and encourage failures. So we are we have fear of failure. What if we invest, what if we fail? So that has to be taught. Failure is not the end of everything. They should be taught. Real life examples should be given by the faculties with their teaching, right? So business model should be given that these were the persons that failed in their life, these are the businesses that failed but they came up, like that. Should be taught to students in that way, right? Yeah. One session is to start a part-time, full-time PG program where a student can come and set up a startup company in part-time way, and then a degree can be given to him, right? So these are the some of the things which can be done. Lastly, we have the entrepreneur performance impact assessment. So I'll quickly wrap up here. The impact assessment, you all know, is the ARIRA, utter ranking of institutions of innovation and achievements. I think the institute might have already participated. So there are some of these points which you can consider, which will improve the ARIRA ranking, right? Yeah. So and this part is how we are going to formulate the policy. So institute supposed to make a policy, implement the policy, and then using the ARIRA ranking, you will have the impact creation, right? So with that, I'll end here. So that's the same thing here, and this is the status of NISPs as of now. So nearly 1983 HEIs have already registered for the NISP policy. So with that, I'll stop here. Yeah, thank you all for listening. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you, sir. Yes, thank you, sir, for such
Any,
an
yeah, any
informative
questions
and
from audience?
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now it's time for Q&A session. which will be conducted by Dr. Shruti Anand. Over to you, Shruti.
Thank you, Dr. Nishi. Now I request all the participants that if you have any question related to innovation or startup or entrepreneurship, now is the right time to ask. Okay, you can post your queries in the chat box and I will be addressing all those queries in front of the speaker. So there are certain queries I would like to place them before you. Am I
Yes, yes.
permitted to do so?
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
Okay, so thank you so much, sir. So Dr. Nishi Singh, she has asked a question. It kindly suggests few ways about how to mobilize external resources for supporting pre-incubation activity.
Okay,
She's
so
asking
for
about
that, yeah, for that you may approach the nearby institutions. So like for one example could be a BHU. For our institute also we don't have the incubation support, so we can ask the nearby institutes. IIT Kanpur is nearby also for us, so we can approach them. They can provide you those facilities very easily. I mean, they will be happy to do that. They'll get some share, of course.
okay.
This I've already explained, I think, slides.
Yeah, certain questions are repetitive, but
Yeah.
how can innovation and startup be useful for regional development? This question has been asked by Dr. Neeta Sahu.
Regional development.
Yes.
Yeah, startup. I think this one or two points I think I missed while sliding the slides. Actually, the important point is here. Institute has a close relationship with the society where you are living. Like we as a researchers, we always focus on what's happening around us. Right. So we focus on what's happening in the Ganga River. We do research on that, or we do research on how we can make electricity from the Ganga water. This you might have seen. So similar way, in the startup, you can think in the regional fashion. You go to survey is very important. You go to nearby people, you float your survey, you ask them questions. You have some idea, you ask them questions. What is your need in terms of this particular entity? Okay, you ask them. Let's say one example could be farmers. Let's say for the farmers, if you farmers, they need the real-time prediction of rainfall. So you ask them, are you comfortable? Do you need this rainfall prediction? Okay, how frequently do you need? What is the medium you will be comfortable with? Are you comfortable with app or news, whatever is it? So take the survey. So that way you will be able to solve the regional problems because you are able to connect. HEIs are able to connect to social network very easily. So in that way you can do the regional level startups. You don't have to go for the global. Yes.
Okay, okay. Starting small and going.
Then go big. Yes.
Yes, yes. That's a great thing. How much flexibility is permitted to frame the institution innovation policy within an organization?
I think this part was also mentioned somewhere that the institute should formulate the policy based on the NISP policy as well as state policy. So you should focus on both.
Okay.
There is no law here in NISP. There is no law. Everything is guideline. If state has some law, you should focus on that. Apart from that, NISP is only guideline. You have full flexibility, but guidelines should be adhered to. I suggest. I mean, if it's given, then it should be adhered to in most of the cases. Yes.
Okay, sir. So I think so. You wanted to say that there are certain boundaries, and we have to work within those boundaries.
I'm just saying that should be done again. This is not compulsory, and this NISP never says that you should adopt 9.5% or 10.5%. It's again a guideline. Different institutes have different policies. If you pick up IIT Kanpur policy, you may find different numbers. IIT Bombay have different numbers, so they have their own policies.
Okay, sir. One last question.
Yeah.
Nena Yadav, she's asking, hello, sir. I'm currently working with an edtech startup and we are in growing stage and we want to work on B2B level. Any suggestion which you would like to give so we can generate revenue 2x more than now?
Okay, so
Okay.
it's a good thing. So you're already having startup here. You want to work on the B2B level. Okay, so for that case, a very important point which we have seen here is the market. You should, social market. I don't know if you've done it or not, but if you do the proper marketing, okay, so you can refine your product on one way, and you want to generate revenue. Okay. Okay, so revenue generation would be market only. I'll say market because that is the biggest problem. You just think of that market. If see, market is different. You have the classification of the market. You may have let's say your product is more focused on the young generation. Okay, so you try to approach that generation only. Don't need to scale up. Don't need to go for the other generations. You just stay on that focus only, but you narrow down the needs. So that way you may be able to reach more customers, more consumers as compared to scaling. So scaling issue was there for the Ask Me Bazaar. That failed because of that. You don't need to go there. Pick up one focus. Don't lose focus. Go with the same class of the population, and then grow your startup, and you will be able to succeed definitely. That again, it is another way of topic that we can discuss.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think so. This is the end of Q&A session. If you have still participants, you still have 1 minute if you want to ask anything.
I can post my email address if you have any queries.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
You can contact me on that also.
That would be helpful to the.
So you can contact me on this email if required. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for addressing the Q&A session, and your session was really thought-provoking and very much informative. Very much informative. Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to request Dr. Manjri ma'am to please accord formal vote of thanks. Dr. Manjri ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. You are.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. राष्ट्रीय नवोन्मेष एवं स्टार्टअप नीति के अभिविन्यास सत्र यानी नेशनल इनोवेशन एंड स्टार्टअप पॉलिसी NISP के वर्चुअल मोड पर उपस्थित सभी प्रतिभागियों को सादर व सहित नमस्कार। सर्वप्रथम मैं आज के कार्यक्रम के मुख्य वक्ता विषय विशेषज्ञ मोतीलाल नेहरू नेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट के सिविल इंजीनियरिंग विभाग के असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर, स्टार्टअप कोऑर्डिनेटर तथा NISP के इनोवेशन एम्बेसडर डॉक्टर प्रमोद सोनी जी के प्रति हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करती हूँ। जिस सरलता और सहजता से आपने हमारे आमंत्रण पर सहमति प्रदान की वह आज के समय में अनुकरणीय है। साथ ही मैं आपको इतनी सहजता से सुलभ कराने वाली प्रोफेसर गीतिका मैम को कैसे इस अवसर पर भूल सकती हूँ, सो मैं उनके प्रति भी हृदय से आभारी हूँ। आपके उद्बोधन से छात्राओं को नवोन्मेष और स्टार्टअप संबंधी जितनी विशिष्ट और बृहद जानकारी प्राप्त हुई उससे निश्चय ही नए उनके लिए भविष्य में नई संभावनाओं के द्वार खुलेंगे, ऐसा मेरा विश्वास है। आपने जिस तरह से गाइडलाइन में नवोन्मेष कोष, नवोन्मेष परिषद का गठन या नवोन्मेष और स्टार्टअप नीति के बारे में सेमेस्टर ब्रेक, ईयर ब्रेक की बात की, आपने जिस तरह से वर्ल्ड रैंकिंग की बात की, आपने जिस तरह से ये बताया कि 90% स्टार्टअप्स क्यों फेल्योर होते हैं, और जनरली हमारे एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशंस में सक्सेस स्टोरी तो बहुत जोर शोर से गाई जाती है, लेकिन फेल्योर पे हम डिस्कस ही नहीं करते। सो फेल्योर पे भी डिस्कस करना, जिसको हम कह सकते हैं कि हमारी प्रणाली में विफलता पर भी चर्चा होनी चाहिए, क्योंकि सफलता का आवश्यक और अनिवार्य कदम विफलता है। प्राइमरी स्टेज पे कहीं ना कहीं किसी न किसी रूप में बाधाएं भी उत्पन्न होती हैं। आपके प्रयास पहली ही दफा जो है वो सफल नहीं होते, और जब नए विचार लेके आते हैं तो जैसा कि सोक्रेटिस ने कहा था, जब आप नई बात करते हैं तो पहले लोग हंसते हैं, फिर उसकी आलोचना करते हैं, और जब वह लाभकारी होती है तब उसको स्वीकार करते हैं। यह जो बुनियादी सत्य है, ये चाहे स्टार्टअप हो चाहे कोई भी जीवन का लक्ष्य हो, उसमें पूरी तरह से शत प्रतिशत जो है सत्य प्रतीत होता है। सो आज का आपका जो व्याख्यान है वह 2-3 चीजों के लिए हमारे स्टूडेंट को जरूर प्रेरणा देगा। सबसे पहले बात कि जब आप कार्य को करते हैं और तब बताते हैं तो कोई भी चीज बाधा नहीं बनती। क्योंकि एक्सपीरियंस जो है वो सबसे लर्निंग का सबसे स्ट्रॉन्ग रिसोर्स होता है। क्योंकि आज हमारे विषय के जो वक्ता हैं, हमारे जो एमिनेंट स्पीकर हैं, वो खुद इस फील्ड में काम कर रहे हैं और उन्होंने सारे परिदृश्य का डायरेक्ट एक्सपीरियंस किया है। आज का जो प्रोग्राम है वह केवल थ्योरी या थ्योरेटिकल वे में डिस्कशन जो होते हैं उनसे अलग है। स्टूडेंट्स जरूर इस बात से मोटिवेट होंगी कि सफलता या असफलता जो है वो मुद्दा नहीं है। मुद्दा यह है कि आपके पास नए विचार हैं, नए उत्पाद हैं, नई विधि है, उसको साहस के साथ आप प्रस्तुत करिए। उससे लाभकारी जो लोग हैं उनको अपने साथ जुड़िए, जिसका जो कंट्रीब्यूशन है, चाहे रिसोर्स के रूप में मिला है, चाहे अन्य किसी भी तरह से आपको कॉर्पोरेशन मिला है, उसको आप दीजिए। आप अपने प्रोडक्ट की क्वालिटी मेंटेन करिए, मार्केट की नीड को समझिए, कंपटीशन को समझिए मार्केट के, और तब फिर दुनिया में कोई भी आपको सफल होने से रोक नहीं सकता। और तभी स्टार्टअप और इनोवेशन जो है, जिसकी कि आज के परिदृश्य में हर शैक्षिक संस्था से मांग की जा रही है, तो उसके बुनियादी जरूरतों को समझिए कि कैसे, और वही शायद नेशनल बिल्डिंग में स्टूडेंट्स का भी और एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन का दोनों का कंट्रीब्यूशन होगा। ये बात निश्चय ही आज आपके जो प्रेजेंटेशन है उससे हमारे स्टूडेंट्स को समझ में आई होगी, और जानकर ये हर्ष हुआ कि कुछ लोग स्टार्टअप कर रहे हैं। ये तो बहुत ही ज्यादा खुशी का विषय है, और आपका ईमेल दे देना और ये कहना कि हम आपके साथ हैं, वो निश्चय हमारी छात्राओं को प्रोत्साहन देगा। हम आपके हृदय से आभारी हैं। आपके उद्बोधन ने, आपके प्रेजेंटेशन ने जिस तरह से विषय पर प्रकाश डाला है, वह छात्राओं के लिए मार्गदर्शन करेगा। हम आपके हृदय से आभारी हैं, और भविष्य में भी आपसे इसी सहजता से आपकी सुलभता की मैंने अपेक्षा रखते हैं। इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ आपको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। प्रमोद सोनी जी, मेरी आपसे डायरेक्ट मुलाकात नहीं है, लेकिन हम इतने आश्वस्त थे गीता जी से बात करने के बाद कि हमने फिर निशी को लगाया और हमने कहा कि नहीं, सब कुछ वही होगा जैसा कि उन्होंने कहा है। सो आई एम रियली थैंकफुल टू यू बाय हार्ट।
थैंक यू मैम, थैंक यू।
महाविद्यालय की प्राचार्य प्रोफेसर लालिमा सिंह अपनी सदस्यता एवं सहयोगी प्रवृत्ति से आयोजकों के उत्साह में सदैव वृद्धि करती हैं। मैं उनके इस भाव की प्रशंसा करते हुए हृदय से कृतज्ञता ज्ञापित करती हूँ। मैं एक्टिविटी कोऑर्डिनेटर डॉक्टर निशी सेठ, ऑर्गेनाइजिंग सेक्रेटरी डॉक्टर हरीश कुमार सिंह, डॉक्टर रवि कांत सिंह, डॉक्टर श्रुति आनंद की कर्मठता और उत्साह के प्रति भी आभारी हूँ, जिनके बिना यह आयोजन संभव ही नहीं था। आप सब छात्राओं के हित में इसी प्रकार के लाभकारी कार्यक्रम आयोजित करती रहेंगी, इसी अपेक्षा के साथ आप सबको भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। मैं इंस्टीट्यूशन इनोवेशन सेल के कोऑर्डिनेटर डॉक्टर अनुराधा सिंह को भी हृदय से धन्यवाद देती हूँ, जिनके अथक प्रयास व परिश्रम से ही महाविद्यालय में काउंसिल की स्थापना हुई और इस प्रकार के जागरूकता व जानकारी भरे कार्यक्रमों का आयोजन संभव हुआ। मैं गैर शिक्षक कर्मचारियों के सहयोग को भी अनदेखा कैसे कर सकती हूँ। श्री मोहित कुमार, श्री कृष्ण कुमार और उनके सहयोगी व अन्य सभी, जिनका नाम मुझे यहाँ से बैठे हुए नहीं पता लग रहा है, उनके प्रति भी आभार व्यक्त करती हूँ, जिनका टेक्निकल असिस्टेंट हमेशा इस तरह के कार्यक्रमों को सफल बनाता है। हम सब विविध क्षेत्र में उत्पाद, प्रक्रिया, सेवा क्षेत्र में नई विधि, नई तकनीक, नई कार्य पद्धति, नए सेवा, नई उत्पाद कर देश के अर्थतंत्र को स्थायी बनाए और अंत में इस मंगल कामना के साथ कि हासिल हो तुम्हें सफलता, एक दिन तुम इतिहास रचाओ, पार करो हर बाधा को, सारे जग पर तुम छा जाओ, सारे जग पर तुम छा जाओ। इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ कार्यक्रम के मुख्य वक्ता, समस्त प्रतिभागी, आयोजक और सहभागियों को बहुत बहुत आभार।
Thank you, ma'am. Once again, thank you, everyone. Now, I'm ending the session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Pramod
ma'am.
sir.
We can end now here, ma'am.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.